Alright, everybody, welcome to our first critical thought of 2021. Changes are abound. We have a banner up there for this part, and I'm using a new camera. I'm finally in 1080p in all the HD splendor I'm sure you guys are excited about. But speaking about upgrades and such, for today's critical thought, we're going to be discussing job systems when it comes to video games, and how while I may be going to be a level 36 game design critic, I would certainly wouldn't mind dual specking in a Necromancer class. When you talk to fans of RPGs, a job or class-based system are usually some of the more popular options when it comes to playing these kinds of games, and for a very simple reason. They offer a level of customization beyond just, here's a nondescript warrior, or a nondescript mage, archer, whatever. Now, to make things simple for us for today, a class-based system means that the character is locked from beginning to end in terms of whatever their abilities may be. So this is what we kind of see from older CRPG games, Wizardry series, Might and Magic, and so on, where I choose I'm a warrior, that's my class forever. Many of these games will allow you add character creation to set up a dual class. So in this case, you could be a warrior mage, cleric bard, thief archer, I don't know, pick a combination that you want. And what this usually means is that they'll balance it by, you won't be able to access normally like the top tier skills of either class. So if you have a skill tree of, let's say, 1 to 4 kind of groupings of skills, if you dual spec, you may be only to go up to maybe tier 2, tier 3 in each, whereas the super amazing all-powerful skills are staying in tier 4. A job-based system simply means that you can switch this character into different jobs whenever you see fit. Although some games will kind of force you to can only do it at specific points in the game. It could be at a save point, a specific job vendor, you get the picture. Now, job design and job balance is a little bit different than class. Again, with a class-based system, you are locked into it from the start, so your abilities are kind of kept in that very straight or very consistent progression curve. Job systems muddy this up, because it's not just a character level you're concerned with, it's a job level. And how this works from a basic standpoint is that when you create a character, or when you have a character in the game, they start, let's say, with a flat rate of attributes. So let's say 100 health, 100 MP, 10 strength, 10 dexterity, 10 intelligence. As you level up, they'll gain points accordingly. Let's say 5 more points of health, 10 more points of strength, and so on and so forth. The job that you put on top of that will influence what the stack growth is going to be and add more points accordingly. So if I'm a, level 10 Josh, and I put on a warrior job, I'll gain additional points in strength and health. I may lose intelligence and magic, or those will not go up as far. So your official stats are going to be the sum combination of your character and job skill. This is very important when it comes to balance in these kinds of games, because how the game will determine kind of the enemy's relationship to you is going to be in both of those tiers. So you could be a level 60 character, but if you just swap jobs to something new and your character only has a level 1 in that, your stats may be more like level 40, maybe even level 30, compared to the enemies at that point. This is a very big deal, because this can easily screw players if they're not prepared. It screwed me really bad when I played Blue Dragon. This was the JRPG for the 360, and what I did was I decided to switch all my character jobs right before a point of no return, went into this boss level, or this boss dungeon, couldn't do a damn thing, and I essentially soft-locked my progress and had to restart the game from scratch in order to do things right. And that's where this idea of kind of locking when and where you can switch jobs has come into play. Because if you couldn't switch jobs before a major dungeon, or let's say the major save happens before the point of no return, that would be a different story. Now, one of the reasons why you will always, or why you typically want to switch jobs, is that many advanced games that make use of job systems will allow some aspect of carryover. This could be in terms of skills, stats, or both. That's where Yakuza Like a Dragon up there really shines. Every character can switch between the jobs in the game, and at specific job ranks, those jobs will give you a permanent bonus or a permanent skill, which is very important if you're trying to do the endgame bonus super oh my god so difficult challenge. And again, being able to swap jobs like this allows you to have greater utility. Do you want your character to be a mage for a very tough, let's say, physical resistant fight? Do it. Do you need extra healing? Do you need extra melee or tanking? And you get the picture. And the beauty about these systems, again, is when you start to get very creative with the jobs and what you can kind of carry over between them. Some games I've seen will go for, you can have, let's say, 10 skills, and 3 skill slots are wildcards. They can be whatever the heck you want. Do you want the Mage's Regeneration skill with the, I don't know, Assassin's Instant Counterattack skill, and throw in a Medic's Auto Health Regen skill? Well, do it. And when these systems work out really well, they can keep people invested in it for a very long time. And these games will often demand a lot of your time as well. Now, with that said, there are a few considerations that we'll talk about in the second half of this video. But to keep on this point, job-based systems allow you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to design your characters. Older RPGs, of course, went with the old school, the RPG holy trinity of warrior, glass cannon, and then some kind of healer. And what we see for the games that get creative today tend to fudge those classes a little bit. So you could have a warrior who could also heal, a mage who can tank, a rogue who can also shoot magic. It's really up to the designer, and that's very important. When we talk about job or class-based systems, it is pretty much going to be entirely on you and your imagination. What do you want your various characters to be? Now, with that said, we're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, I want to talk about some of the downsides, and more importantly, some of the considerations you need to think about when you are designing a job-based system, and where all this goes in terms of how you balance the characters and the game around them. And now for a quick thank you to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. Now available at most retailers are my current books on design. 20 Essential Games to Study is an intro-level look at 20 unique games to provide inspiration for any developer looking to get into the game industry. And the Game Design Deep Dive series each go into a top-to-bottom look at the design of a specific genre, with platformers and roguelikes now available, and horror coming in the near future. We have more Yakuza Like a Dragon for the second half because it really is a good example of the pros and cons of the job-based system. Now, we've already talked about the pros in the first half, but when you are trying to build a game around job-based system, you have to be very considerate in terms of how the skills properly work with each other. And you want to avoid anything that can create a required job. Because when you do that, you are basically just disguising this game as a very straightforward class system. As in, if there's only one job in this entire game that can heal, or heal properly, why would you change to anything else? Or even change to an off heal? Many games will try and muddy things up by having multiple versions of each job. So 3 kinds of frontline fighters, 2 kinds of back range, 4 support, you get the picture. The problem with this is that typically there will only be one best answer. And this can be coupled or further causing trouble if certain skills just don't work or don't work at all times. And this is where Yakuza Like a Dragon certainly fails. There are plenty of skills in this game around debuffing and kind of status ailments on various enemies. The problem is that while they're very effective on normal enemies, such as, and this attack here is really good on normal enemies as well, there are a vast majority of debuffs and such that simply will not work on bosses. And in any RPG-based game, if you have an ailment or a debuff that bosses are immune to, it makes that immune to, or that makes that worthless to the rest of the game. Because why would you invest points in something that you can't use at all times? And conversely, it means that the skills that do work on the bosses, you're going to invest heavily in those because why not? If every boss in the game can have their defense be reduced or their attack be reduced, why should you not take those skills? Now, some people will argue don't take them because, let's say you're trying to fit a specific theme, or you're building a party that is just for fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. But from a design standpoint, you want every job to matter. And this goes back to an earlier conversation, an earlier video we did about balancing choices. That every choice should have a moment in the sun. No choice should be perfect all the time, and no choice should be worthless all the time. And with Yakuza Like a Dragon here, there are plenty of skills that are just worthless to take, while others are required. Now, unfortunately, I don't want to spoil anything about the endgame here in the video, so there's not going to be any footage of the final bosses or any boss fights to show here. These are just going to be common enemies. But the point still stands that when you have skills that are so good, and worse off, if they are locked to specific classes, so let's say or jobs, let's say one job, and only one job, gets ability for a group heal. Well, guess what? If you want to have a dedicated healer, you're going to need to take that job no matter what. A better way to design this will be to have variations of these specific roles. So what I mean is, instead of having just one de facto heal, let's say there are heals of different kinds. A heal that provides lifesteal to your characters. Another heal that provides passive regeneration. A direct heal. Let's say even a heal that works when the character is defending. What we're looking at are different roles or utility. So instead of just saying only job A gets the power to debuff, let's say you spread debuffs through different jobs. So one job could get a debuff that makes your enemy more weak to poison. Let's say another job gets a debuff that slows their turn. What this does, it allows you to set up for more synergies and utilities between your jobs. So a job that, let's say, is heavily poison spec doesn't sound all that exciting by itself. But let's say there's another job that promotes or increases the effects of damage over time, or again, lowers poison resist. Suddenly, you have a synergy going. And when you start to have these elements interact with each other, it leads to far greater depth and makes the system all the more rewarding to play. Because again, if you have 20 jobs and only 4 of them really matter, then really you just have 4 jobs in your game. And we've seen plenty of RPGs fall into this rut. That we're going to give the player all the choices, and 90% of them don't help or don't matter at all. And it leads to these systems feeling bloated out. Now, with Yakuza here, like I said, I do like the fact that it allows you to have carryover between your various jobs, but you still need to grind those jobs out. And this is another important point I want to mention before we begin to wrap things up. How you improve jobs is a major discussion for you and your design. Some games will treat jobs as earning the same experience as regular ones. So let's say I gain 5,000 experience from fighting an enemy, I'll also gain 5,000 job experience. Now that can work. Another option is, let's say for every 1,000 points of experience, you get, I don't know, 10 job points. And of course, when the job levels up, that improves the job, and then the cost goes up and up. What you need to be concerned with is how easy is it to increase the job level. What Yakuza and what a lot of RPG games will do is there's kind of a buffer that it's very, very easy to get every job up to a certain level, and then the progress nosedives, as the game wants to kind of force you in a way to cultivate a main job. So in this game, as an example, you get, I think, 2 permanent unlocks per job by level 8, level 9, somewhere there. And then it becomes a lot harder. You may get your next unlock at job level 21, 22. But this allows you to at least get dip your toe into each job, especially see if you like it. Another point to consider is whether or not you can earn job experience with characters in jobs that aren't active at the time. In Yakuza here, my other 3 party members get experience, and they will get leveling up just by being around, but they will only get job experience for the job they've chosen. And again, this really comes back to how much of a grind do you want your game to be. You could just say job experience applies to all unlocked jobs and call it a day like that. Now, a game like Valkyria Chronicles, for instance, may not be a job-based system, but what they simply do is categorize every character into chosen classes, and then the class itself levels up. So if you level up, let's say, infantry to level 7, all characters in the game who have the job or have the class of infantry are going to be level 7. And they will only gain experience when you level up that specific class. And a system like that could easily be applied to jobs as well. Now, with that said, to begin to wrap things up, job-based systems are very popular, and some of the most recognizable RPGs, such as Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, make heavy use of them. And again, for good reason. When you give the player this almost complete control over the customization of their party and their various units, it creates a lot more of a personality, or it gives the game more personality and customization that can help keep people interested in playing it. My question for you watching this: can you think of really good job systems in games that we didn't mention, and can you think of really bad ones as well? And also, can you think of any modern examples of games that have done this? Because a lot of the games that I've been thinking about that make use of jobs other than Yakuza here were older, like 15, 20 years. And it is a design that's a lot harder to do than just straight up linear classes. With that said, I hope you enjoyed our first critical thought of 2021. As always, if you'd like to suggest a topic for a future piece, be sure to leave a comment or join our Discord. You'll find links to that in our Patreon link down below. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.